In the relentless currents of modern life, we are much like small boats, constantly tossed and turned on a vast, turbulent sea. The ceaseless clamor of the world around us, our worries, our anxieties, the unseen pressures that weigh upon us, these are like fierce, unending waves, threatening to overwhelm and carry away the peace of our hearts. It is so easy to lose our inner stillness, to become lost in knee-jerk reactions and negative emotions, only to find ourselves further from serenity, mired in weariness and suffering. Yet, within the profound Dharma teachings of the Buddha, we discover a most precious practice, an unparalleled strength, capable of liberating us from this very cycle. This Dharma is the power of stillness. In this video, we will embark together on an exploration of the deeper meanings of stillness. We will seek to understand why within silence lies such extraordinary power, a power that can help us master our minds and respond to the ever-changing tides of life with serenity and an unshakable composure. I invite you now to gently set aside your worldly cares, and for a moment, quiet your heart, relax your body and mind. Let us together commence this journey of discovery into the unparalleled power of stillness. May these moments we share be like a refreshing spring, nourishing your soul and guiding you to discover true peace and happiness right here, in this present moment. In this noisy and bustling world, we are so often pulled into the whirlwind of instant reactions and rushed actions. But let me ask you this: what if the greatest power you could ever possess isn't found in forceful words or grand gestures, but rather in the depths of silence, in the capacity to keep your heart still amidst the ever-changing currents of life? Consider for a moment, how often do we allow life's unexpected storms to dictate our emotions? Countless times we've been lost and tossed about by anger, disappointment, or fear, haven't we? We dwell in a world saturated with noisy clamor, unceasing movement, and countless distractions. Everything around us seems to demand an immediate reaction. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and rage flares up within you. A harsh word is spoken, and defensiveness immediately arises. A cherished plan falls apart, and panic takes hold of your heart. But here's a fundamental truth: reacting doesn't put you in control. In fact, it does just the opposite. It makes you a puppet of circumstance, like a leaf caught in the wind, blown here and there without will. But consider the wise ones, those who embody true strength and wisdom. They do not react. They do not allow the world to drag them into its chaotic currents. Instead, they observe, they pause, and then, with clarity born of stillness, they choose their response. Picture yourself standing at the ocean's edge as a storm gathers. The waves crash, the wind howls, and the water churns with fury. If you leap into the sea, you'll be at the mercy of the tides, tossed and turned without direction. But if you stand firm, plant your feet on solid ground, rooted and unshaken, the storm will rage and then subside, and you will remain standing. This is the power of stillness, the strength of presence, the mastery of your own mind rather than being mastered by the world. So, the next time life throws its chaos your way, remember this: you are not obligated to be swept away. You have the capacity to pause, to breathe, and to choose. And in that very moment, you reclaim your power. Now, let us delve deeper into the profound wisdom of mastering this stillness, through timeless lessons, stories, and truths that have guided the strongest hearts and minds throughout history. For once you learn to harness this power, nothing, absolutely nothing, can truly shake you. It was a morning filled with peace. Gentle rays of dawn streamed through the windows of a quaint little coffee shop. Aaron sat, savoring a cup of coffee, enjoying the serenity of a new day. Life in that moment seemed to slow, unhurried. The fresh aroma of coffee mingled with the warm scent of pastries, creating an atmosphere of simple peace and tranquility. The soft murmur of conversations, the gentle clinking of cups, the steady hum of the coffee machine, all blended into a soothing symphony of the morning. But life always finds ways to test us when we least expect it. A man rushed past, and in a moment of carelessness, bumped into Aaron's table. The unexpected jolt sent Aaron's coffee cup crashing down, the dark, rich liquid spilling out, staining his crisp white shirt. In an instant, the ceramic cup tumbled off the table, shattering into sharp shards on the tiled floor. The sharp crack echoed through the cafe, and all activity seemed to pause. In that moment, all eyes turned to Aaron. Most people in Aaron's situation might have reacted instantly, a gasp of shock, a sharp word of anger, a displeased frown, perhaps even an indignant demand for an apology. After all, his peaceful morning had just been disrupted by someone else's carelessness. Wouldn't he have a right to be upset? But Aaron did not react in that way. Instead, he took a deep breath, as if to let the moment settle. He looked down at his shirt, the coffee stain spreading like a dark ink blot on the pristine white fabric. Then, with an almost extraordinary calmness, he picked up a napkin and gently dabbed at the stain. He exhaled, and offered a smile, a genuine, unforced smile, before meeting the startled gaze of the men who bumped into him. "It's all right," Aaron said, his voice calm and reassuring. "It was just an accident." The man, who had braced himself for anger, sighed in relief. He hadn't realized how tense he was until that moment, and his shoulders visibly relaxed. He stammered an apology, his hands fidgeting awkwardly, his face full of remorse. The cafe, which had been holding its breath in observation, also seemed to exhale in relief. The tense moment passed, and life resumed its flow. But something lingered, a lesson, a quiet wisdom, an unspoken understanding that not every battle is worth fighting, not every disruption deserves anger. What Aaron demonstrated in that moment was not weakness, but strength. A kind of strength rarely taught, yet invaluable in life, the strength to pause instead of react, the strength to choose peace over anger, the strength to see beyond the inconvenience of the present moment and understand the fleeting nature of all things. This composure does not come easily. It is not the default response of an untrained mind. It is a skill, a discipline, an act of mindfulness cultivated over time. Imagine another version of this story, one where Aaron slams his hand on the table, his voice rising in anger. "Are you blind? Can't you watch where you're going?" The cafe would fall silent again, but for a different reason, holding its breath, anticipating escalation. The other men would shrink back under Aaron's anger, mumbling a hasty, clumsy apology, unable to truly defuse the tension. The morning, once bright and peaceful, would turn sour, tainted by an emotional storm that was entirely avoidable. And isn't this often how many of us live? Reacting to every mishap, every slight, every inconvenience, as if it were a personal attack, as if the universe itself were conspiring against us. In that moment, as if anger could somehow undo what has happened. But anger never turns back time, disappointment never makes spilled coffee unspill, and agitation never mends what is broken. There is an old Buddhist parable about a traveler who always carried a bowl of water with him. Whenever he met someone new, he would stop to show them the water. If he was startled, if he rushed, the water would spill, lost to the earth. But if he remained calm, if he walked steadily and carefully, the water would remain perfectly still. Aaron in that moment was like that traveler with steady hands. He did not let the outside world disturb him, he did not lose his inner peace over a passing inconvenience. And this is what we must strive for in our own lives. We will all have our coffee spilling moments, disruptions, tests of patience, opportunities to react or respond. The choice is always ours. So, the next time someone cuts you off in traffic, the next time a colleague takes credit for your work, the next time life throws an unpleasant surprise your way, take a deep breath, pause, and ask yourself, is this worth sacrificing my peace? Is this moment worth my energy? Will my reaction improve the situation, or only make it worse? Most of the time, the answer will be clear. Stillness is always an option. Later that day, after Aaron left the coffee shop and changed into a fresh shirt, he reflected on that small but profound moment. He had not lost his composure, he had not allowed frustration to darken his entire day. Instead, he had chosen to let go, and in doing so, he had preserved his own peace, and perhaps, in a small way, offered the other men a moment of grace. He wouldn't soon forget it. This was the true strength of patience, not passive endurance, not suppression of emotion, but a conscious decision to respond with wisdom, to choose the path of least suffering. And the question remains, when life tests you, when unexpected events shake your foundations, when the world challenges your patience, will you react, or will you respond? Long ago, there lived a great king, renowned throughout the land for his wisdom and fairness. His reign was one of peace and prosperity, his people were well-fed and content, and his reputation extended far beyond the borders of his kingdom. He was not merely a ruler, but a sage, one who understood the complexities of human nature. One day, a man stormed into the royal court, his face flushed with rage, his voice sharp with accusation. He hurled insults at the king, cursing his name, calling him unjust, declaring his policies oppressive, his leadership weak. The entire court fell silent, anxious eyes darting between the enraged men and their king. Surely, the king would not tolerate such disrespect. Surely, he would unleash his fury and have the men thrown into the deepest dungeon. But the king did not flinch, he did not waver. Instead, he remained seated, perfectly still, his expression serene as he listened. The storm of words raged on, but he remained unmoved. The man, emboldened by the lack of reaction, continued his tirade, expecting his words to wound, expecting his anger to ignite a matching fury in the king. But something unexpected happened. When the men finally paused, breathless after his outburst, the king smiled. It was not a smile of mockery, nor a smile of condescension, but a smile of understanding. "Tell me," the king said, his voice gentle and warm, "if someone offers you a gift, and you choose not to accept it, to whom does that gift belong?" The man, still simmering with anger, blinked in confusion. "Why, to the one who offered it, of course." The king nodded, his eyes holding timeless wisdom. "So then, if someone offers me their anger, and I choose not to accept it, to whom does it belong?" Silence descended upon the court. Enlightenment dawned on the men like a sudden flash of lightning. His anger, intended to provoke, had found no purchase. His insults, meant to wound, had met only absolute stillness. The force of his rage had become meaningless, hanging in the air like echoes in an empty hall. His shoulders slumped, his hands trembled. Shame, where anger had been, crept into his voice as he bowed his head. "I understand, Your Majesty. My anger is a burden for me alone to bear." The king nodded again, his smile unwavering. "Indeed. It is always a choice, whether we accept the burdens others try to place upon us. Anger, resentment, hatred, these are gifts often wrapped in thorns. But we are not obligated to take them." The lesson was profound. The men left the court that day transformed, and those who witnessed the exchange carried the king's wisdom in their hearts. A similar story is told of a monk who lived in a village at the foot of a great mountain. He was revered for his kindness and his deep understanding of the mind. One day, a young warrior, brash and arrogant, sought him out to test the monk's patience. He stormed into the temple, shouting insults, heaping vulgarities upon the monk, mocking his robes, his practice, even his very existence. Villagers gathered, horrified, waiting for the monk to react, to defend himself, or at least to rebuke the warrior. But the monk said nothing. He did not rise. He simply sat there, observing the young man with eyes full of understanding. The warrior's voice grew hoarser, his breath ragged. When he finally stopped, expecting a reaction, the monk simply asked, "If someone brings you a gift, and you refuse it, to whom does the gift belong?" The warrior frowned in confusion. "To the one who brought it, of course." The monk smiled gently. "Then why should I accept your anger? It is yours to carry, not mine." The warrior's hands trembled. He had expected resistance, expected to provoke rage, but he had met only peace. He was left with no choice but to confront his own emotions, to realize that his anger was only consuming himself. He bowed his head and departed, changed by a lesson he had not sought, but desperately needed. The world will always offer us opportunities to be angry. There will always be those who seek to provoke, to wound, to test the limits of our patience. And in those moments, we have a choice: do we take the bait, allowing ourselves to be swept into the storm, or do we stand firm, letting the tempest pass without disturbing our inner peace? A wise teacher once said, "Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer." The only one who truly suffers from uncontrolled anger is the one who carries it within. Anger, like fire, demands fuel. It needs our thoughts, our energy, our willingness to engage in conflict. Without these, it will wither and die. The next time someone offers you their anger, whether through an insult, an unjust accusation, or a deliberate provocation, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, do I wish to accept this gift, or shall I leave it with the giver? For in that moment of choice, true power resides. The king understood this, the monk understood this, and now, so can you. Aisha was once like many others, easily reactive, easily disturbed by the world around her. If someone cut her off in traffic, her mood would be soured for the rest of the day. If a deadline shifted unexpectedly, she would be plunged into stress. If someone spoke unkindly, she would carry those words with her all day, letting them gnaw away at her peace. But one evening, as she sat beside a still lake, something profound shifted within her. She had come there after a particularly exhausting day, one of those days where everything seemed to go wrong. Her mind buzzed with frustration, her thoughts tangled like knotted thread. She tossed a small stone into the water, watching the ripples spread outward, distorting the reflection of the moon above. Then she noticed something else. Beneath the surface agitation, the lake remained still, undisturbed by the ripples on its surface. The deeper water remained calm, steady, unaffected by the surface commotion. It was as if the lake itself held a secret, a quiet wisdom hidden beneath the movement. Aisha sat there for a long time, completely captivated. An insight dawned within her like a flash of lightning. Life would always be turbulent, unpredictable, full of change. But like that lake, she had a choice. She could allow herself to be tossed about by the surface waves, or she could anchor herself deep within, where stillness remained undisturbed. That night, she made a decision. She would no longer allow external forces to dictate her inner world. She would train herself to become like the deep water of the lake, steady, unmoving, undisturbed by passing storms. The next morning, she began to practice her newfound understanding. The first test came sooner than she expected. A colleague at work, known for his sharp tongue, made a pointed remark about Aisha's recent project, belittling her efforts. In the past, this would have sent Aisha spiraling into self-doubt, frustration, and defensiveness. But today, she paused. Instead of reacting immediately, she took a deep breath and reminded herself of the lake. She smiled, nodded, and calmly said, "I appreciate your feedback," before turning back to her work. She did not let those words settle in her heart. Like the lake that does not hold onto ripples, she let them pass without disturbance. Aisha found herself applying this practice throughout the day. When someone cut her off in traffic, she didn't curse under her breath or carry the irritation with her. Instead, she thought, "That was unexpected, but I don't need to let it affect me." When a meeting ran late and disrupted her schedule, she adjusted without frustration, reminding herself that stillness was a choice. She had spent so many years reacting to life, letting small inconveniences swell into large emotions, allowing external chaos to seep into her mind. But now, she had glimpsed a new way of being. She could observe the storm without becoming part of it. She could be the deep water of the lake. One afternoon, Aisha faced a real challenge. She received a call from her bank. A mistake had been made with her account, and a large sum of money had been wrongly withdrawn. Panic surged in her chest. The old Aisha might have reacted instantly, demanding answers, her heart pounding with anxiety. But she had been practicing. Instead, she closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and pictured herself sitting by the lake once more. Be still, be like the deep water. She opened her eyes, and calmly inquired with the bank representative about resolving the issue. By not letting panic cloud her mind, she was able to listen carefully, understand the process, and take the necessary steps to rectify the error. The situation was resolved within a few days, without unnecessary stress or frustration. Looking back on it later, she realized how much she had changed. That moment had proven something powerful. Stillness was not just a concept, it was a way of living, a superpower in a world of constant motion. Months passed, and Aisha continued to practice. She became known among her friends and colleagues as someone who was unshakable in the face of adversity. People began to come to her for advice, asking, "How do you stay so calm?" She would smile knowingly and tell them the story of the lake. "There will always be winds," she would say, "there will always be ripples on the surface. But beneath it all, there is a stillness that you can choose to live within. You just have to remember that you don't have to chase every wave, you don't have to react to every passing breeze. You can simply be." Some understood immediately, others took time, but all who heard the story carried away something to ponder. Aisha had found peace, not because life had stopped being chaotic, but because she had stopped allowing it to control her. She had learned the secret of the still lake. Calmness is not the absence of storms, but the refusal to be disturbed by them. And in that realization, she had found a freedom she had never known before. Life is a storm. It will test you, shake you, challenge you in ways you never anticipate. Winds will howl with doubt, the ground beneath you will tremble with uncertainty, and the world will press in upon you, demanding a reaction. But in these moments, when everything seems to be spinning out of control, you have a choice. Will you be swept away by the chaos, or will you stand firm, unshaken by the tempest? A wise old monk once said, "If the storm is outside, why let it enter within?" Reflect on that. The world may be full of noise, but does that mean your mind must also be noisy? A harsh word may have been spoken, but does that mean you must carry its weight? An unfortunate moment may arise, but does that mean you must let it define you? True True strength does not come from fighting every battle. It does not come from proving yourself through noise and force. Strength comes from knowing when to act and when to be still. The lion does not roar at every rustle in the leaves. The mountains do not tremble every time the wind shifts. The strongest warrior is not the one who reacts to every slight, but the one who chooses their battles with wisdom, patience, and clarity. So, the next time life throws a storm at you, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, is this worth sacrificing my peace? Is this worth my energy? Because not everything demands a reaction, and not every battle is yours to fight. Sometimes, the greatest power lies in silence, in restraint, in choosing not to engage with negativity. When you master the art of stillness, you master yourself. And when you master yourself, nothing, not anger, not fear, not adversity, can truly defeat you. Be like the mountain, steadfast and unmoving. Be like the lake, deep and undisturbed. Be like the wise king, who refused to accept the gift of anger. Let the world do what it will. You remain at peace. If this message resonates with your heart, if you find even a moment of clarity in these words, please take a moment to share it. For somewhere out there, someone is caught in a storm, and they do not know how to weather it. Help them find the power of stillness. And remember, wisdom is not about knowing everything, but about knowing yourself. It is about mastering your own mind, so that no storm, no word, no external force can shake you from within. After these moments of reflection and contemplation together, I hope you have gained some sense of the immeasurable value of stillness. This is not an escape from life, but a profound practice that helps us to stop in order to see, listen in order to understand, and be still in order to act, with wisdom and compassion. Carry this lesson of stillness with you into your daily life. When facing challenges, difficulties, or negative emotions, remember to pause. For a moment, take a deep breath, listen to the voice within, and return to the still lake in your own heart. You will find that in that stillness, wisdom and compassion naturally arise, guiding you to overcome all obstacles and live a life of peace and meaning.